Hey everyone, it's Lynn Kenny. So happy that you're taking the Bloom Brain Smarts class, and we promised you lots of extra terrific content. And we're here today with Michael Delman, who I'm enjoying so many conversations with. Michael is the CEO of Beyond BookSmart, and it is basically the premier executive function tutoring program in the United States. And how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
What a beautiful day. Is it beautiful in Massachusetts?
It's probably more beautiful in Arizona, but
Hey, we just dropped below 100, so we're very happy.
oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, it's New England beautiful right now. It's rainy. We have a, four-season world out here. It's fine.
You and I have all these amazing conversations about the executive function skills children need and
Hmm.
how we'd really like them to be a part of more of the core educational components of school. I wanted to chat with you a little bit for the people attending our course and all the people in our community. What exactly is executive function coaching?
Hmm. So executive function coaching is helping students to develop their executive function skills in the context of something that is real world, real life, of real importance to them. So you can teach executive function skills in a vacuum, but for us, we teach it at Beyond BookSmart in the context of a student's schoolwork and beyond their schoolwork, hence the name Beyond BookSmart.
Ah.
Yeah,
And so what would be an example of some of the executive functions? I call them cognitive skills when I'm talking to the kids.
sure.
What are some of
Yeah.
the cognitive skills you teach the kids?
So the suite of skills includes things like emotional regulation, kind of managing impulses, and that whole section. Attentional controls, so everything from sustained attention to selective attention, just being able to make good choice on where you're focusing your time and your energy. We also really focus with executive function skills on planning, prioritizing, time management, organization. These are the things usually parents are saying, and teachers, can you get those to my kids right now? But of course, some of those emotional pieces and attention pieces need to be in place for those to work. And then we also really look as well, Lynn, at the metacognitive piece. So the ability to reflect and self-monitor so that if you're off track, you realize it fairly quickly and get back on track.
I really love that because a lot of our work over the years, like now, year 30, what we're starting to do the same thing as you. Like we
Yeah.
used to kind of layer the skills on top of the children, and now we try to give them the skills from the inside up so that we're empowering them to be better learners, right?
Mhm.
That's our goal. That's
Yep.
everyone's goal now.
Yeah.
So now a lot of people do coaching. What
Hmm.
is the difference between executive function tutoring or coaching and just standard tutoring?
Mm. You know, so many of us have done some sort of tutoring, just academic tutoring to help a kid get by on a math test or to do well on an English paper. And those are important things. But those are really aimed at kind of the crisis du jour and, getting through a particular moment or even a particular subject. The executive function coaching is really designed to help a student learn these broader skills that cross domain. So the idea with executive function coaching is that you take a challenge, let's say it's an English paper or it's a math test, and you turn that into an opportunity to teach skills of planning, how to do backwards planning, for example, how to break down the English paper into its components so that you're not stressed at the end on Sunday night getting this thing done when you've had 2 weeks to do it. Or take the math test, for example. Rather than just focusing on the content, you're also teaching skills like self-assessment and learning, what do I know? What don't I know? What completely surprised me, and it's my, quote, DKDK, it's what I didn't even know I didn't know. Yeah. So a lot of kids get really anxious during and before these things, so they avoid. So teaching them what are their patterns and helping them to become more aware of themselves as learners and have strategies so that whatever what would have been a crisis comes up, it's not a crisis anymore. There's a way to manage whatever challenge comes up.
I'm loving so much of what you're saying because if we teach the children the process of how their brains work and how they learn and what the skills are, then no matter when the curriculum changes, the school changes, they go to college,
Mm-hmm.
it's all the same. It's all the same skill set. I love that you do that.
Yeah, or even when they're older and they go to work and they go to the job and maybe they have a couple of different bosses that they need to take the perspective of this boss and that boss into account, or they've got multiple projects going on simultaneously. Well, if you've learned to manage several bosses at school, different teachers with different expectations, who may have different styles, and they're all assigning you things at different times, when you get out into the working world, you're just better equipped for that, that as well.
So now I'm excited to dive in, because one of our goals is to create force multipliers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not everyone can hire an OT or a tutor or a coach or a psychologist. So we're figuring if we teach teachers some of the advanced skills in simple ways that the tutors or the executive coach, function coaches know them, then we can have them done at tier 1 in the school from the beginning of the child's education, which is my dream, right?
Yes.
What do you think are some of the critical skills? And I'm hoping you'll teach the teachers one. So what are some critical skills that an everyday person or an everyday teacher could teach the children in their classes in order to make them better learners? We would like experts, definitely, because you guys know a lot more than we do. But if we couldn't get an expert, what's a basic skill?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things you can do. And some of these things are implicit in a lot of great literature out there. Things like Research for Better Teaching and, The Skillful Teacher, things like that, actually embed a lot of good executive functions skill support in the way that they teach teachers. So there's a lot out there that's really effective. Your work is really good. I think people can read those things. But a couple of tips for teachers. I think one of the things that teachers are always looking for is trying to get the attention of the class and keeping kids kind of on the ball and paying attention. A few things to get that started. How do you start class? How do you get kids awake? One well-known thing is to greet kids as they're coming into the room, having a do now up on the board so that their attention is focused on something. And it just helps to create a routine and a sense of calm. It regulates their emotions. It's a low stakes way to get started and to build community, and everybody's focused on the same thing to begin with. That's one. Another is actually literally being on the ball. I had a tennis ball that I would have as a teacher. I did this more with my 6th graders than my 8th graders, but tossing that ball around back and forth, and no one knew when that ball might come to them. So it was guaranteed that they'd be paying very close attention. A squishy ball might be good for one that's not too painful if you miss. Other things for teachers have to do with where you are in the room. It should be very deliberate. Standing in front of the classroom is not very good. Typically, it can be intimidating. It's a power message, as opposed to moving throughout the classroom, making deliberate use of space. Sometimes moving behind the students, that's a power move, but it's done deliberately, and it gets kids to just kind of sit up a little more. And then asking the students for a self-assessment of, where are you right now with this? If this is really totally clear, give me a 5. A 5 means you can teach it to the person next to you. If you have no clue what's going on, give me a 1. A 3 is, I'm kind of getting there. So those little self-assessments all the time. The other kind of self-assessment that I really liked, especially when I taught math, was to have mini whiteboards for all. They're not that expensive, and it's so slow and teacher dominated to have one kid come up and do a problem. And everybody sits there going, and it becomes a Charlie Brown classroom with the teacher, droning on. But you have a question and everybody's doing it on their whiteboard. You could even differentiate and have 2 or 3 questions, and the kids could answer the ones that they're most ready to answer. And then you could say the answer to number 1 is, and everybody holds up their boards who did number 1, and you get a quick sense of the teacher, you get a read of the room. So that does both. It gives kids a sense of where they are, and it gives you a sense of where they are simultaneously. So those kinds of moves, teacher moves, get kids to be more alert and attentive because they're actively engaged throughout.
I'm taking notes here. You can see me taking notes, because you're saying a lot of really helpful things, but I've heard 2 things that I think some teachers would adore. Aside from the strategies, I love this idea of snappy cues, because you've used some terms like, well, that's my DK. Then you use this term, like I was thinking it could be question time because you said, so I could say, that's my QT. I got a question over here. I love giving the children a language that can be actually like appropriate to them. Well, you're like categorizing and labeling and giving them this new kind of language so that they can be in on it instead of always feeling like, I don't get it. I don't know. I'm afraid to ask. I don't want to be embarrassed, you know?
Yeah.
So who's got the QT in here? And what's your DK? I'm thinking that we should have a whole list of that. Like, it's kind of like the LOL stuff that we do on our
phones. Kids love it. I mean, that's the whole way they text to one another. It's on their Instagram accounts. Right. It's, those TLAs, 3-letter acronyms, those are really good. You know, it's important to speak their language to some extent, and it lets them know that you appreciate where they're coming from. It's also very efficient, as you're kind of implying there. I think one more thing I would just recommend for teachers, it's so easy to do, and it really, really makes a difference, and it helps kids with their anxiety, is the day or 2 days before a test, especially where they're anxious, say it's a math test, is to have the kids put their heads down for a minute, close their eyes, hopefully they don't fall asleep. And this is not a visualization, just it can be that, but very simply asking the students, okay, what will you be doing tonight to prepare for the test tomorrow? What will you do? And you let them raise their hands, but with their heads down. So it's very, very chill. Yeah. Great. And the student says, look over my notes, and say, great. Looking over your notes, that's one thing. It's a little bit passive though. What will we actually see you do? How will you know that you know? What will you do that will tell you that you really know? So again, you can come back to that DK where eventually kids start to suggest things. Okay, and how will you relax yourself during the test? How will you keep yourself calm during the test? And you go over things about noticing your breath and noticing your thoughts, letting them go, some of the more kind of meditative aspects of success. So when the kid, that's before. So before the test, you're getting the kids to think about themselves, to kind of envision the future ahead of time. And then when they're in the class, before they even start the test, you pass it out to the kids, you distribute the test, everyone closes their eyes for a minute and just say, let's remember some of the things that we said that are really helpful. Before as soon as you flip over the test, rather than starting on problem 1, jot down some of the things you don't want to forget. Jot down those key things that you studied. Put those right there at the beginning. And then take a quick look at the whole test, how many pages it is, so you don't miss a page at the end. And then you can calmly focus on question 1. And if you don't know it, just put a little question mark, come back to it later, go on to question 2. So you're coaching them in how to take a test well. Those things they tell the kid that you're on their side. And it's so important that they know that. I did that we had leveled math classes, and I did that with the inclusion groups. I did it with the kids that were in, high level math students. And I did it with the more mixed groups, and all of them saw their scores go up just by, knowing the teacher's on your side and trying to encourage you. So those are a couple more.
I'm happy that you said on your side, because throughout this whole conversation, that's what I kept hearing from you over and over again. Create mastery for them, create predictability, give them strategies that work, help them with previewing and planning. You're saying, I care about your learning, and I'm on your side.
Yeah, I think that's nice the way you encapsulated it, and some of the particulars you gave, like previewing and planning. I think a big goal of teachers that perhaps we don't consciously do, but I think it should be, is demystifying school. Right? I mean, that's a kind of, it's almost subversive, but you really want to demystify and help these kids understand that, oh, this is how it works. I had this one student, he's a musician, and he hates writing essays. He loves writing songs. He's a brilliant poet. And when he realized that writing essays, that there was a process to it, just like with his music, there's a process. Oh yeah, verse, chorus, bridge, with essays, there really is a way that you can construct your introduction, your body paragraphs, your conclusion. You can get away from a formula, but there kind of is a basic formula if you want to do a simply, good job, an adequate job. It was such a relief to him to see that there is a method. It's not just some kids are born great at this stuff. And so I think, again, Lynn, if we can demystify for kids and show them that, there's a way, as they say, we always say to kids, where there's a will, there's a way. But we also have to teach them that, and we have to know as adults, where there's a way, there's a will. So if we show them a way, they will develop that willpower. That's, I believe, a Mel Levine quote. And it just really helps the kids to know, again, I'm on your side. I want you to succeed. Here's a rubric. Here, here's how I'm doing it. Right. Here's an exemplar.
Strategy, there's a way.
That's right.
I just feel like we're constantly testing kids, and maybe even teachers too, asking them to do things that we haven't taught them how to do. And what you brought front of mind today is that teaching them the strategies, teaching them some, I call them, what did I call them? Snappy cues, and you called them TLAs. Teaching them to think about their approach, to use their metacognitive strategies, and to be on their side while you're doing it, instead of being like, well, here comes the test, you better know it. Right. When you work with younger kids, you tend to kind of get next to them, crouch down by their side. It's a message you're sending. Literally, you're on their side, you're by their side, you're at their level. I think some of the best teachers I've seen, they're really big on things like test corrections, a chance for revisions, a chance for a kid to continue to do better and to learn from experience rather than it just being, a judgment. So that's the whole language out there about, formative assessment versus summative assessment. Formative assessment is en route to a final grade. I'm going to give you feedback and a chance to get better. And so you're really focusing on quality and learning and not just on teaching. I always like to say, if you haven't learned it, maybe I just didn't quite teach it enough. Yeah, you're a very special person. The fun thing about this formative assessment is that when we also teach the children that the reason we're doing formative assessment is in order for them to help their brains, we make them the cognitive scientists. And because some kids think formative assessment is, I wasn't doing well enough, and so she's giving me another chance. I'd rather say, this was a brain-based process where we're trying to train your brain. We're trying to really make those neuronal connections. We're building new highways. So the reason we do a little now, and then we correct it, and then a little now, and then we correct it, is because the way we learn is we put it in your brain and we take it out. So you're actually, instead of being a student who's not doing well, you're being a cognitive scientist for your brain.
I know it's a great reframe. I think it's I think it's one that you're transforming something that feels like a judgment into something where you're showing someone their potential, and really you're building them, or you're building them up, teaching them how to lead themselves. And that's just, to me, the best teachers want to you want to get your kids to the point where they don't need you anymore, where they're increasingly independent, they're increasingly understanding what you're up to. So, rather than making it a big mystery what's going to be on the test, or, you say, these are the kinds of things that'll be on the test, and you want to teach them how to manage those challenges. I guess, kind of lastly in that frame, I think strong teachers you're even teaching the kids, and this is a big ask of teachers, but I was working with a group of students today at an art school, and teaching them about what to put their energies into, what activities. It's really valuable when teachers are clear. This assignment is worth 5 points. This one's worth 50 points. It doesn't mean you don't do the one that's worth only 5 points. It means that you put 5 points worth of effort into it, and you don't beat yourself up about it, because we've also got kids on the other side who are very anxious and perfectionistic, and they don't know how to do that for themselves. And part of your teaching is teaching them, this one's going to publication. You should be putting everything you've got into it. There's no mistakes on this. Have it edited and edited and edited. Whereas this one, good enough is good enough.
Wow.
And so really, it's not lowering your standards as a teacher. It's teaching them to be discriminating and intelligent about the decisions they make.
That makes me think about all the, we have a big gifted population, because we've got a specific school district that's well recognized. And so people move here to go to that school district, and they end up being my patients because they're so stressed out. And I wish that I had known this when I saw them, because to teach a child, like we teach, Leah Kuypers teaches all this wonderful zones of regulation, which I adore. I like that we can apply this also to effort. Like, how are you going to evaluate which needs most effort so that you're not spinning your wheels and you're not burning yourself out? I think that effort thing is something that I'd love to see a blog post, or, you know what, this is the bottom line.
Love to. Yeah.
You're trying to make the children's not need you, but we need you. So I'd like to do a few more videos, because I've made a few notes on a few other important things.
Sure.
I want to make this effort thing one of them. And then I want to talk with you about this, more about transparency and teaching kids about their brains.
Yeah, I think it's critical for kids, and teachers get results out of that too. It's great for teachers, because instead of grading kids on some sort of bell curve where kids are competing against each other, you really can do standards-based grading and feel good about holding kids to a standard where they see if they're meeting expectations, and you start to find, oh my goodness, everybody can meet the expectation. And
it moves the whole curve up.
It moves the whole curve. Yeah, right. It's just, it's a great thing. It makes teaching that so much more satisfying when you see all the kids improving. And of course, I do want to say this as it's caveat to teachers. It's not an excuse, but look, the kids have to want it a little bit too, but they're much more likely to want it if they, again, feel that you're on their side. You're showing them your cards and what you're really expecting, and if you give them the tools to achieve it.
Well, it's great to have you here, Michael. We're here with Michael Delman today, and I'm really looking forward to doing more interviews with you. I mean, you're just so full of valuable information. Thank you for spending your very important time with us. And
it's been a real pleasure.
I look forward to talking to you again.
All right.
See ya.
See you.